Good morning, world. I am back.
How you feeling?
I feel good. I was just tired. I wasn't sick. I was just after the debate. I think it exhausted me.
Yeah.
As it exhausted probably many of you. It was a frustrating debate. Poor Cedric. We watched it together, and he was like, "Gosh."
Yeah, I won't get too much of that, but glad you guys. If you watched last episode, I went solo. Brian was had a well-deserved day off because if those of you don't know, I need to give him his kudos, his props. He does all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Like a lot of YouTubers will just hold their camera up and just start them. He does a lot more. Where you guys can't see everything, but there's lighting, there's microphones, there's a lot of stuff. He does all that, and I go home. But what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about a Professor Matthew J. Mayhew at Ohio State Buckeyes, and
The Ohio State.
That's right. And some comments he made that we thought were really reasonable, but then, of course, in today's culture, he had to take it back.
Stay tuned. You're talking about that. I'm Cedric,
and I'm Brian, and this is Cedric and Brian. All right, Cedric, so I ran across this article about a professor at the Ohio State. He made an innocuous, is that the right term, innocuous?
Look at you using big words.
He made some comments, or he wrote an article. He said basically that he thought that it's good to get football going again because it's a way to bring people together, non-political, not black or white, just out there rooting.
A sense of normality in our lives with all this COVID going on. Get out there and cheer on for your favorite football team, and especially in a Big Ten school like Ohio State where football is religion.
So this Mr. Mayhew is now the latest victim of cancel culture, or bowing. I call it bowing to the mob, because you can't have your own thoughts now if it doesn't align with, and I'm just going to say it, the left. It's not the right. You're not getting canceled like the old days by the church or anything like that. You're getting canceled by people on the left. So let's just get that out there. So this guy, he's a professor. Most likely he's on the left, and after you read his response, obviously he's on the left, or he's being pressured by the left. He said, I'm going to put this quote up here. He made the mistake to argue in public that college football might help us get through these uncharacteristically difficult times of great isolation, division, and uncertainty.
It's a good point.
It is a
great point.
And college football holds a special bipartisan place in the American heart. And Cedric talked about this on his solo venture last episode, about he is a Bronco fan, and he has great conversations with the hated Raider fans, if you're a Bronco fan.
Right.
But they can have a beer, they can watch the game when he was watching the games, they can talk about it, they're still friends, because it's just, we know that football is on the surface. You root for your team, and some people, I'm passionate.
Yes.
I know I get upset sometimes when my teams lose, but in the end, you get over it, and it's fine. You know, people root for their team, you root for yours. It's a fun way to get together. So this guy made a great statement. Nothing wrong with it.
Right.
So
he goes on to say that the return of the game might help Americans remember to, quote unquote, respect one another. One of Mayhew's most shocking passages reads, football players become beloved community figures beyond the boundaries of the stadium or campus. I like that. Football players, sometimes they're unreachable, they're untouchable, but in a college campus, they are tangible, they are reachable. You can reach out and touch them and interact with them.
Yeah, and it's fun to look up to because they're great athletes.
Yeah.
And you look up to them. You don't look up to them, obviously, as we see. You don't look up to them as the great politician or the great social commentator of our time, but you do look up to them because of their athletic ability. Again, you get out of your head. You go watch a game. I remember I played football for 8 years. That was my life. I know you look at me now. I wanted to become a professional football player. He wanted to become a professional basketball player. So obviously you look at us, reality hit us in the face, and we accepted it. But it was hard for me. When I had to stop playing football, I went to a school where I couldn't. It was a much bigger school. And I enjoyed going and watching the games.
Right.
So I could still have football in my life. And this guy was just saying it's a great way to get out of our our own head and just go enjoy.
Right.
He also stated here, I'll put this up, he stated, and I agree, that rooting for a football team is a tame way to disagree and still get along and have fun. So it is.
Agree.
And those are my words. It's a tame way to disagree and have fun.
Yeah, but you and I, we've been in this situation. There's nothing better than going to that local bar or tavern and just having two opposing people rooting for their teams, and you have fun and you banter and you ridicule and you tease each other, but it's all in the nature of fun.
And so it's what sports is all about. So he says, even he states that at Ohio State, we are not Republican or Democrat. We're not black or white. We are all Buckeyes, because that's what the Ohio State is. So you're all this one family for a time, for that 3 hours you're watching the game.
Yeah, you're under this umbrella of being all Buckeyes.
But you're not sitting next to each other going, oh my gosh, that guy's a Republican, or that guy's a Democrat, or that guy's into Black Lives Matter. At least that's the way it used to be, but now people have to wear that, on their sleeves. They'll wear their Black Lives Matter shirts. So now you can't even go without getting the politics of it in your face. And it's nice when you go to a stadium and everybody just has a jersey on, or they just support their team. So you can get away from the politics and the social unrest just for a little bit. Everything we've stated that this professor has said, have you seen anything wrong with it?
I see nothing wrong with it. I think the way things should be.
Now, 10 years ago, would he have gotten blowback for saying any of that?
No, I think that's a very, very strong worded article, and I think no one would disagree with that in any way, shape, or form.
Well, obviously he got blowback from the university, and we know that the universities, almost all universities, are these microcosms of what we always call woke, or whatever you want to call it. So obviously, and I don't know who got in his head.
Well, he probably got blowback from the administrators, and to be more specific, he probably got blowback from the Capitol campaign department and some of the donors who may give some of their hard-earned cash and money to the university.
Let's go back. Is where Mr. or it might be Dr. Mayhew. I don't want to call him Mr. If he's a professor, he's probably Dr. Mayhew. Here's where he offered his Mea Culpa.
Okay.
Or Mea Culpa, however you want to pronounce it. Because God forbid we just enjoy sports, right? Okay. So let me put this up on the screen. He acknowledges that he must say sorry for the hurt, sadness, frustration, fatigue, exhaustion, and pain such ideas inevitably caused. So the stuff we talked about at the beginning, it caused, Cedric, did it cause hurt, sadness, frustration, fatigue, and exhaustion?
Now, what is it? What is it?
What he had said about enjoying sports.
So football, but so the enjoyment of sports has caused all this.
Yeah, in particular, college football.
I don't see it.
He was being specific. He says he has a deep ache himself. Now, again, do we believe he has a deep ache? I mean, he wrote that stuff because he believed it. He believed that sports helped. And now somebody's got in his head, and he has a deep ache for the damage he has done.
I don't believe he has a deep ache any more than I believe that Drew Brees, under his own admission, has a deep ache.
Yeah. And what damage did he? I mean,
he was the product of, quote, uninformed and disconnected whiteness, whatever that means, which positions student athletes as white property. Kind of like that.
How do we unravel this? I wanted to play football.
Right.
I would have given anything to have a full ride scholarship to play football at a university. These kids, they basically are taught, excel in your sport, and you may help by having your college paid for.
Right.
And in some cases, you'll turn that into a law degree, a doctor degree, something. In other cases, rare, you may go beyond, you may go and become a professional athlete.
Right.
Okay? But at the minimum, you've got a nice education paid for you.
Yeah.
And this guy's saying, and I'm sure he was told this by people like Ibram X. Kendi, because this is exactly what comes in my head, is exactly what Ibram X. Kendi preaches, that now these athletes are white property because they have this opportunity now to get an education.
Right.
This person is being told by these people that he does, whether he knows it or not, he's a racist and he has white privilege. And this is the kind of stuff that drives me crazy. And again, I think it's people that buy into this, maybe they are the racists, and they realize they're the racists and they have to fight against it.
Yeah, true. I wish he wouldn't have backtracked on his original statement, but like you just said, someone probably got to him, someone in the higher-ups, the administration, or one of the donors came down and said, you know what, you need to change the verbiage of what you said. And he did. I mean, because if you don't, it affects your paycheck.
Yeah, who knows? I mean,
And you don't, and for teachers, especially, and if you guys haven't seen the great documentary Expelled, most presidents are trying to get published, and you say something that damages the university, you don't get published. Yeah. And that's huge for professors.
And then I'll put this quote up here. His words that served only to express an ideology wrought in whiteness and privilege. So that's what Cedric was just talking about and what I was talking about. You can't say, yeah, I want to go watch a college football game without that being white privilege. It's silly. And he hates that his students have to carry his ignorance, saying my ignorance, racist energy with them all the time. So again, he's accepted this mantle of racist because somebody told him he was a racist.
Right.
And now he's got to apologize for being racist, whether he's racist or not. Didn't sound like he's actually a racist. But that goes back to, I just read 1984.
Okay.
So there's a thing, if you haven't read 1984, in 1984 there's a thing called Newspeak.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's where they just take one word and they put "un" in front of it.
Right.
They make it the opposite.
Make it a new word.
So in today's culture, it's not good enough not to be a racist. You have to be an anti-racist.
Anti-racist.
Or in Newspeak would be unracist.
Right.
So this is all just, it's like we're living in Orwellian times. I never thought it would happen because I read the book back in 1984, which was supposed to be when all this was supposed to happen. Well, here we are in 2020. And it's actually, it's happening. We've basically got Newspeak, we've got thought police, because you cannot think a certain way. And
right.
if you do think a certain way, you're racist.
Right.
It's not how you act, it's how you think now.
Right.
So you want to kind of go on, because you kind of researched a little bit of this whole critical race theory.
Right. And like Brian just said, the Newspeak has taken on different ways now. Like back in many years ago, it used to be called in schools and places of business diversity training. And then I think that morphed into racial sensitivity training. But now it's morphed into something else.
Yeah.
CRT.
Yeah.
Critical race theory. And what critical race theory is saying is basically shaming anyone who is an oppressor. Now, I'll go through this really quick because we're running out of time. But critical race theory basically says that there are two groups. There are those who have power and those who don't have power. So someone like Brian has power. Why does Brian have power? Because he is on the lower scale of one who's oppressed. White, heterosexual, male. It comes down a little bit lower to me, black, heterosexual, male, and it goes down even further to someone who is a black, gay, female. Now, here's the thing though. Brian isn't allowed to have Brian has no moral authority because he's too high up on the scale. The person low on the scale, the black, gay, transgender female, has all the moral authority over Brian. So therefore, like Brian was just saying, he's not allowed to speak on social issues because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Therefore, he's not allowed to speak on it. This is all wrong. And that's what they're teaching in schools now. Critical race theory. And I know you guys have seen those clips where a group of white people will get into the faces of minorities and tell them that they're sorry and I apologize.
And kiss their feet.
Kiss their feet. Or minority students, black students are allowed to yell at white students and say Black Lives Matter, say it.
And it's because this is being taught. People think this is organic and it's just out there in the street. This is being taught in the universities. And the reason, and Trump is getting, even Chris Wallace said, why did you ban social sensitivity training in the federal? He changed the word. He's using Newspeak. He didn't ban that. He didn't want critical race theory being taught at these in these federal institutions because it's literally saying what Cedric said is if you're white, you just have to sit there and take abuse.
Right.
And I just saw something. It kind of points to this where you've got this tier, right? Mm-hmm. So the person at the university who may have a mother who's a doctor, let's go to the Huxtables. A father who's a doctor, a mother who's a lawyer, he's an affluent, wealthy black person. He's going to be set and be allowed to do things that this white kid whose mother just died of cancer, who lived in a trailer park, but since they are white and straight, they don't have any power over this person who was raised by two parents in an affluent system because we're basing everything just on the color of your skin.
Right.
And that's what Trump was saying that he didn't like. It's not that he doesn't want people to be sensitive to other people's feelings. He's saying that this actual thing is this anti-race learning, this critical race theory is racist in itself.
Right. And this is what they're trying to pass in the schools now, the critical race theory, whether it be in high schools or in colleges. And once Brian, or someone like Brian, again, a male, white, heterosexual, once he gets to the point where he's been beaten down enough and been indoctrinated enough, and Brian finally comes to his senses and realizes, oh my goodness, you're right, I do have privilege, I have been wrong. He becomes, as Drew Brees was, and what I'm assuming Professor Dr. Mayhew was, he suddenly becomes woke. And that's when you reach that level of wokeness, when you realize you have been oppressing people the entire time.
But don't be fooled. Just because you become woke doesn't move you up on the ladder.
No.
You're still where you were, but now at least you accept it in your heart and you can stay down there.
Right. Right.
And so I wanted to bring this up too. So what Dr. Mayhew says is, if you are white property, as he states, what are we supposed to do? Do you remember Jackie Robinson?
Yes.
So we fought to get black athletes into the general athletic competitions. Mm-hmm. So we went through it. He went through a lot to break through the racial barrier. Mm-hmm. So now we have actually in football and basketball, the majority of players are not white now.
Correct.
So we've gone beyond, and we just said, okay, who's better, and that's who's going to play. Now this person's saying, no, you're using black people as white property. It's like, no, they're better.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do? Go back to the days when the blacks had their own league and the whites had their own leagues? Is that where we're going? Because that's what the universities are doing. They have white dorms and black dorms. They have white cafeterias and black. They're going in reverse. So this critical race. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little steam.
I hear.
This critical race theory is actually putting us back 50 years.
This is what happens when he gets a little rest.
Oh my God. But it's being taught, and it's the reason why people do not want this being taught. It's ridiculous. If you believe in this, I'm sorry for you.
Well, it's good. I'm glad to have Brian back. Again, we wanted to just share our viewpoints on this right here, and because it resonated with both of us. But make sure you like, you subscribe, and you ring that bell, and share this video with everyone you know. And just as a little tidbit, if you want to see our little thing on racism we did a few months ago, we did a 3-part series on racism. Mm-hmm. Go back into our feeds and you can watch that as well.
And you get to meet his kids on that.
You can meet my kids in the 3rd series.
The end of the third episode. Yeah,
they talk about being biracial and what's that like growing. It's very good. They did a lot better than Brian and I. They should get their own show. But anyway, guys, a lot of the numbers have been growing, the numbers have been increasing, and we thank you for that. We thank for those of you who have commented saying, you know what, I'm going to share this with my parents. I'm going to share this with my cousin. I'm going to share this to the person I know who I used to go to school with. Keep sharing our videos. If it resonates with you and you feel they can impact someone else, we appreciate that. Until next time, I'm Cedric.
I'm Brian. See you later. Where's O'Malley?
Oh, good Lord.